All right, Gamecock fans, let's get after it. That's right. It's your boy Rooster. Rooster with, man, it's been a day full of information around South Carolina. SEC started off South Carolina making an announcement tomorrow, moving away from Under Armour, going with Nike starting in 2026. Then some bad news of losing offensive lineman to Tennessee, and not even going to call the kid's name because he left. No need to even talk about it. And now the SEC is making an announcement that we're going to move to a nine game schedule starting in 2026. Now, South Carolina, we know, had some home and homes upcoming with Miami. How does that play out? Because it's supposed to be a home and home. If you keep Miami 2026, what do you do in the future if that happens? Do you keep them and play 11 Power 4 games if you're South Carolina? I don't know. So do you work? You know, the ACC is going to make that move to go to 9 games. Does Miami want to keep South Carolina on their schedule in the future? I guess there'll be some conversations going on about that. The North Carolina, NC State, those type of Power 4 non-con games. Since we already have Clemson, I don't see South Carolina keeping them, or do they keep them? Strength of schedule, I guess, has been one of the things that's been talked about with the playoffs. That being looked at, of course, now it's going to change, right? Because had we had that last year, South Carolina's probably in the playoff at 9-3 because our strength of schedule was way above SMU, Indiana, and a few other teams that got in. Sankey did a interview on Paul Feinbaum and was talking about the 9-game schedule, talking about playoffs. I guess they're fairly happy with 12, but it looks like I think he's really kind of pushing for the 16. Either way, they want auto bids for each conference to get in. I think the Big Ten, and the SEC are all about getting, like 4 each, or who knows what it'll be, 5, 6. Who knows? There's just so much discussion going into that. A lot of people's been pushing for the 9-game schedule in the SEC. I haven't opposed it. I haven't been for it. I mean, to us, South Carolina, it doesn't matter. To teams like Kentucky, who has to play Louisville every year, Florida, who has to play Florida State every year, Georgia plays Georgia Tech, and I know there's some famous Georgia fans running around on YouTube that's been pushing the 9-game thing and thinking, well, Big Ten's doing it. If I'm Big Ten, I ain't doing it. It is what it is, man. But a lot of this has come about because some of the SEC teams won't play anybody that's seriously relevant from another Power 4 conference. And that's what the bitching is. And some people are saying, well, we need to get rid of that late November versus FCS. Just because the schedule's changing does not mean that November game against an FCS opponent's not going to be there. South Carolina has the one against Coastal this year. We're playing 10 Power 4 teams. We still have Coastal in November. That's not going to stop that. The teams are just going to spread their two. If they're playing 2 FCS teams or smaller teams, and now I know Coastal's a little bigger than, a lot of these like East Tennessee's and stuff like that, but I'm just saying that's not going to stop those type of games from happening in the SEC. They're still going to want to put that game in there. And if anyone thinks a 9-game schedule in the SEC is going to stop teams from putting that game late in the season, it's not. That's not going to happen. Now, it might make week 1's a lot better earlier in your schedule. Everybody may be starting their season with I guess people aren't thinking about that. Maybe it's now you start with a non-con Power 4 opponent in week 1. Maybe even some of these teams decide to do it in week 0, where you get 3 bye weeks. However it works out. I don't think you're not going to stop teams from putting that late smaller school on their schedule because that's when they want to try to heal some guys up that's gotten dinged up during the season. I don't think you're getting what you want if that's your wish. We'll see, but I don't think that. I just don't see another SEC game going in that slot. Maybe some teams will. If you start out your season with 2 smaller schools, then you're going to have to fill that slot with a Power 4 team. But there's teams that's just not going to do it. I don't care what you say. And you can argue that till you're purple in the face. That is not going to take that game out if teams want that game in there. It's a way to get your guys healed, especially with the playoffs coming now. You need that in there. If you get 2 bye weeks plus a smaller team late November, especially if you're doing well and you think you're going into the playoffs, you want that to heal your guys up. So whatever people think that's going to be. But South Carolina fans, y'all tell me, who do you think our 3 common opponents will be, or who would you choose? If you could choose who the common opponents are going to be, I'm sure there's a lot of discussions going on with the athletic directors, coaches. You got so many teams that have so many rivalries. I mean, I'd say South Carolina was to want Florida. Well, Florida has their annual rivalry with Georgia. LSU's always been on their schedule because that's kind of been a permanent opponent for them. And then who's their third game? Are they going to want to play a South Carolina, or are they going to want to play someone else that hasn't been a powerhouse in the SEC in the past 30 years? I mean, I don't know. I don't know how the SEC will do this. South Carolina, what does South Carolina do? Since they gave us Texas A&M, took Arkansas away as a permanent opponent back in the day. That has never been and won't work now. But I kind of now Texas A&M has Texas in the SEC. They have Oklahoma out there that's in the SEC. Texas A&M also has LSU that's a little closer to Texas A&M. But nobody's going to want to. Maybe Auburn and Florida are the two to kind of get jacked the most in this. If they keep their rivalries, because, I mean, you're looking at LSU with Georgia every year. Auburn maybe, because they may keep Georgia and Alabama every year. How they split these up and how they do it's going to be kind of weird. I mean, there's a lot of posts asking South Carolina fans running around who we think or who we'd want as our 3. I've always said I wanted to keep Kentucky no matter what. And I don't mind if Florida's one of them either. I don't think it'll be Georgia just because of Auburn and Florida. I don't think they'll give Georgia, South Carolina, and those other 2. And they're more traditional than South Carolina. I don't know. Georgia and South Carolina and Georgia's played a lot. But of course, Auburn and Georgia's South oldest rivalry. Florida, Georgia's going on forever, and that's the cocktail party. They don't call it a cocktail party anymore. So I don't know. Maybe Georgia, but I wouldn't think they would do that. I've always asked for Kentucky. Maybe, I don't know, depending on what they do with the LSU Florida, LSU Alabama. It's all kind of things that's going to happen. Now, some people think it may be Texas A&M again. I just don't think so. I think with too many teams in that area out there, you got Arkansas and all that stuff. I think maybe you keep Missouri because the Battle of the Columbias, it's not really a rivalry, but kind of have been some great games since Mizzou came into the SEC. A lot of people have always wanted Missouri to leave the SEC or boot them back out. Nah, I don't really have a problem with Missouri. Maybe Vandy stays on South Carolina's. I don't know. Vandy's kind of on. They have Tennessee, but then they don't really have another rivalry outside of Tennessee. Maybe Vandy, Arkansas, South Carolina. I don't. There's so many different ways they're going to have to work this out and figure it out. Like I said, I think Kentucky needs to stay on South Carolina's. That's been a pretty good little battle back and forth between South Carolina and Kentucky. I don't know if Vandy will stay on there. Whether it's hard to say with South Carolina, man. They're going to look around and try to figure it out. And then, you know, if some of this is being done, and then expansion comes, and you have Clemson coming in, you have North Carolina coming, you have NC State coming in. I don't know if NC State will be part of that, but Florida State, everything will get reworked. I mean, to me, this is kind of, is this a pod system? Are you going to make pods, or are you not going to make pods because you can't really make pods because of the rivalries? How are they going to work it out? They'll figure it out. But they at least need to try to make it fair across the board. And look at, if we can't line it up where these strengths, I know some teams are up and down. They're better some years, not as good. South Carolina's not as good some years. They've been better in other years. Just a matter of 1 year made a difference at South Carolina from 2023 to 2024. You go from 5-win team to 9-win team. You can't really judge that, so it's hard to judge that and say, well, these teams are always going to be really good when they play, because Florida struggled too. But if I had to definitely keep Kentucky, get rid of A&M, that's just not. There's nothing about South Carolina and A&M to me that makes a rivalry that's ever going to make a rivalry. I don't know. I think Missouri and South Carolina's been pretty good. And everybody says, well, you can't do it. Well, Missouri's been a really good team. Kentucky in the past has been really good football teams. They both have 10-win seasons, and they're always around 8, 9, 10 wins a year. Kentucky's been down for a couple years, but that doesn't mean they're going to stay down. You know, it doesn't mean that. Vandy's better. Clark Lee's turning that program around. How good will they be? If we get Tennessee, we get Tennessee. I don't know if we'll get Tennessee, because Tennessee has Alabama and Florida, but then some rivalries are going to not continue. It'll continue every other year, but it won't be every year. And it'd be interesting to see how SEC works this out. I don't really care. Just give us some. You're going to have a tough schedule. I don't give a damn who your permanent opponents are. No matter what, you're going to end up against other SEC teams, and it's going to be a tough schedule no matter what. I mean, we say Missouri's schedule's been kind of Tennessee's schedule outside of Alabama and Georgia's been that's because Florida hasn't really been that good. But Florida gets better. Tennessee's schedule would have been a lot harder. To me, it's going to be iffy for Tennessee this year. But who do you match up with Tennessee other than Vandy? Because you have Alabama, you have Florida, Florida can't play everybody. Alabama can't play everybody. I mean, Alabama's got Auburn. They kind of sort of have a rivalry with LSU. I mean, that's a hated. They hate each other. Georgia and Alabama, of course, has built a recent. It's not a true historical rivalry, a recent rivalry, because both teams have been battling for national championships. So it'll be interesting how I pick this out. No matter what, I think South Carolina automatically should keep Kentucky on their schedule. Kind of works out for both these teams because they do have ACC rivals. And maybe that's what they look at too, because maybe we do have Georgia. Maybe we end up with Georgia. We end up with Florida, and we end up with Kentucky, just because we're the 4 teams that have a ACC non-con rivalry game. And I don't know. I don't know how the SEC is going to figure this out. There'll be a lot of conversation about it and talk about it until the schedules come out. Who knows when they're going to announce that? We know how the SEC likes to do that. Look, they know they're a week away from week 1 in some big SEC football games. Texas, Ohio State, a lot of matchups, SEC teams against non-con Power 4 opponents. So SEC likes to steal the spotlight every once in a while, and I think this move today about announcing about They wanted to get it in. They wanted to get the spotlight. They want to get everybody watching what's going on in the SEC over the next week. Get their teams talked about, because there's going to be a lot of conversation about this rival. Who's getting who's going to do what's the schedule's going to look like. So the SEC is going to fill up all the time on these podcasts and YouTube channels and ESPN until the first games start week 1. Is it planned? Did Sankey plan it that way? I wouldn't put anything past him. But anyway, Gamecock fans, y'all tell me. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. I'm sure we'll have many more conversations about this ourselves. But y'all have a wonderful and beautiful rest of your day. Peace.